Being Funny in a Foreign Language by the 1975. 11 songs, 43 minutes long. The 1975, one of my favorite bands, one of the bands I introduced to Dan that he has really gotten into the past couple of years. We did our whole bonus episode of going through all of their music, so please check that out. We really get to dive in on some tracks that I think that people miss, or if you're not really super into the 1975, that you can get into a little bit more, especially their older work, because I think some of it is absolutely
I
incredible.
want to highlight a couple.
But
Wait,
going
really fast. I
into
want to highlight a couple ways people can do that. So, you can check out the podcast version wherever you get podcasts at audioface.show, so you can get all the links. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. You can get the unlocked episode because Syndicate 23 members get these episodes first. They help do all the things that help make Audioface grow and all the things that Syndicate 23 network. So we reward them by giving them the bonus episodes early. And you can get the video version of the episode, which includes some video extras that we like to enjoy and some early photos of the band. There is the Audioface Essentials playlist that we're doing now, which is on Spotify. I'd love to get an Apple Music equivalent if you can help me later, Sean, but more on that.
I think I could do that.
But
yeah.
We basically are putting the best songs from the 1975 throughout their history in like rough chronological order, but some things make more sense just like sound-wise and playthrough-wise, just so you can get a direct idea of what are the songs we're listening to. And it's based off of the songs we shout out and sample in the podcast. So that's a cool new thing we're doing with the 1975 and the Arctic Monkeys, which you should check out soon. And Junior Boys, you should also check out. And the last thing I'll also plug is the retro review we did of the 1975's Black Album, the original OG, which I was, to segue into this review, I used to say that was my favorite 1975 album because of timing and pacing, but I think this one, with a little more time, could beat it. I'm not sure yet, but I'm actually feeling this one in a lot of ways.
Okay, Dan, I need you to do this for me. All right. Pull up my absolute favorite LCD Sound System song, All of My Friends. Listen to it for 10 seconds.
Okay.
Listen to that opening. You know that little piano intro opening, right? You hear that, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go to the 1975. Being Funny in a Foreign Language. Play the first track, the 1975. What does it remind you of?
Oh.
I have nominated the 1975 for the Vanilla Ice Ice Baby Award because it literally is the same exact pacing sound of my favorite fucking LCD Sound System song. I'm not ripping it, but it is exactly the same as All of My Friends. That little piano beat, and it's in 2 songs too. So I'm pretty sure Jack Antonoff produced this record. Jack, don't do that.
What is the line between, like a tasteful like allusion to an artist versus, hey man?
This is like on the borderline because it is almost like, because the thing is the songs are very different, like the pacing of it and everything. And I actually really, really like the 1975 intro. It's completely different than all the other ones. The last one on Notes on a Condition of Form, they did like the Greta Thunberg poem shit, and then the other 3 records, it was the song about blowjobs. So now with the 1975, like on this one, it's actually like different, and it's them like kind of updating what they're thinking, who they want to be, so on and so forth. And I really enjoy it, and I think it's a perfect intro to this record. I've talked to several people who listen to this record, and pretty much all of them agree that they really like that opening, and I think it's a perfect intro to it. But they use that sound from All of My Friends, and it plays throughout that whole song. And there's another song in a little while that I'll talk to that gets into it, but I just cannot get that out of my head of how similar it is. And I don't know if anyone else hears that or like heard it before, but I needed to get that out there because, yeah,
that's.
But it's the same damn thing.
That's impressive. When you go on to the rest of the albums, that's like song 1, and of course the 1975 do the thing where every single we talk about this a lot. But you have Looking for Somebody to Love, and it's interesting.
You skipped Happiness, dude.
Yes, you do have Happiness. Go ahead, talk about Happiness.
It's my favorite thing they've made since A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. It is the 1975 sounding song that they can possibly make. You have this beautiful saxophone that's going on. Maddie's vocals are incredible. It's just everything I want in an indie pop track that you can possibly make. It's beautiful, it's dancey, it's groovy, it's fun, and for all the mistakes they made on the previous records, like having those two tracks and then looking for somebody to love the third one, which we'll get to in a second, I'm like, they're fine. They're righting their wrongs. They're trying to be cohesive. They're trying to figure out who, and you hear this in interviews and stuff too. They're trying to figure out who they want to be, what sound they want to be known as in that way. And Happiness is a perfect track for them. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Happiness is like, it felt like Happiness was like a brief inquiry. Okay, let's redo this mistake. Not that Brief Inquiry was a mistake, but like, yeah, let's just like give this like sound another go. Looking for Somebody felt like that for the
exactly.
Pink album, which is, yeah, like redoing that way too much thing. It kind of feels like it has that kind of like Pink album flair with like the fuzzy synth, and it is one of the more upbeat songs on the record, because I'd say once you get to Part of the Band and Everything Down, it gets...
Well, I mean, I'm in love with you is super upbeat.
With some exceptions, I'll say. With some notable exceptions, I'll say, because I have another different Vanilla Ice nomination for you here. I forgot. I need to get back to it in a moment. But, and you know, this is a little bit... I'll get to it in a moment. But actually, another disagreement I have with you is I actually really like Part of the Band. I think that is the most...
Still don't like it.
That song is the most where I get, okay, the 1975 are a little bit different now. I feel like I got some hints of this in Notes to some extent. But like, this feels like a big, you know, as much as Tranquility Base was a difference for Arctic Monkeys and their sound, this feels like a big leap. Like, okay, the 1975 now sound very different, and it's gonna be a lot more of this. How can we really quickly combine sounds to create experiences and feelings that are a lot like that synthy bliss point thing the 1975 did way too much in their Music for Cars era, that you still get moments of here and there in this album, but
it's super stripped back compared.
Yes, it's restrained, and you're finally able to get some new ideas. And yeah, it challenges them to evoke those similar emotions to still make it like a 1975 feeling album. But Part of the Band really does it, and it transforms in a lot of ways. It instrumentally sounds really nice. I know you don't like it, but I think it's pretty well executed.
I understand why you like it and everything, especially because it sounds very different for them. It's just, there are like maybe 3 or 4 of the 1975 tracks that I just genuinely don't like, and Part of the Band is one of them. It doesn't hit for me. I do like the placement of it, though, in between Looking for Somebody to Love and Oh Caroline. It's a perfect little break between it, so that way you're not just getting, you know, pop track, pop track, pop track. You need to do that. And that's one thing I will give him super credit for. The playthrough of this record is perfect. There isn't one song I really want to move. I like how it goes. It's all cohesive. It's what they needed to do comparing to Notes, where Notes was all over the place, super incohesive. And, you know, if you listen to our bonus episode and our original episode on Notes, you can hear our grievances with that. And I think this record gets a lot of those. And also, I want to say this too, for the Audioface Awards, this gets 2 awards for me, or like nominations. This also gets the Return to Form award, because to me, this is the 1975 at their best of who they want to be. Hey, we can still make very good indie pop records and stuff, but they're still evolutionizing their sound. I'll give you that on Part of the Band. It's very, very different from what they've made. And even like Oh Caroline, the track next to it, the first listen through, didn't like it at all. But then after my second or third listen, because I listened to this record 3 times, after my third listen through, I was like, I get it now. I like it. And maybe Part of the Band will do that. Maybe after like my 10th or 12th listen to, I'll really understand it. But some of these tracks took me a little while to get into it, because it is very different from what I'm used to hearing from them.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. You don't want it to be stagnant.
And I think you have some of like, they're still the same band, but they're definitely refined and matured. You get that most in songs like All I Need to Hear and Human 2, I think.
I love
All I Need to
track.
Hear is that classic, like slower sort of 1975 sort of serenade kind of Matty Healy that he's doing, that you
Yeah.
get in a couple of other different songs, going back to all the way to the Pink album, the Black album. So like this has been in their DNA before,
Yep. Yep.
but usually it was like in this, oh, we need to figure out how to add some glitzy glam rock to this or do some like indie thing to it. But no, it feels like they feel comfortable being themselves, maybe adding some blues elements that they've tinkered with but haven't like moved in with a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I think it all makes for a really good record. And again, this is a 43-minute album. Finally, the 1975 have answered my wishes and have made a
I made less
yes,
than an
less than
hour.
an
Less
hour
than an
and
hour.
very well within what 2022 standards can allow. I can finally look at a 1975
100%.
album and say, you know, look, I may have some disagreements with certain songs and maybe some placements and things like that, but I'm not looking at half of this thing with a buzzsaw. I'm like, I'm gonna hack this thing. I'm gonna make this into 3 different albums and 2 EPs. Like, this finally feels like a cohesive project without being hacked all together. But you get to About You, which I think is really interesting and nice because I guess every band needs to hit this point. It's a really good
I love
song,
that song.
but you listen to the bass line very carefully, and it is exactly on Melancholy Hill. Exactly.
There's another song in here that it plays exactly like as well, and I don't know if they got inspiration from this, but if you hear the string selection of it, um, where it does like these 3 notes, there's like do 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 4 notes, I should say. Like it has that throughout the song. There's a Yunzi track on his Yunzi's first solo record called "Grow Till Tall," and on the album and the live version, especially on the live version, you can hear it. It's exactly the same pacing, the same guitar, and everything on it. When I listened to that About You, I was like, well, that's interesting. That has that sound. And then on Melancholy Hill, you nailed that too, because I thought the same damn thing.
Yeah. And so the Dirty Hit and Associates legal departments definitely get like wearing a lot of these suggestions on their sleeve here. But I
It's a good song though. It's a fantastic
yeah,
track.
it's not a
Beautiful.
total copy. I mean, like it's definitely not the same thing, but I definitely like that's an iconic bass line. This is a similar, English bands, similar influences, similar genres. Like it's there for sure. But again, I've seen that similar song structure in for Gorillaz before. I mean, sorry, before other bands before Gorillaz did it. I mean, so it's not like they invented anything, but it's a very
Yeah.
close recognition, and
It,
yeah,
it's not as bad as all my friends from LCD Sound System, because that is like literally the same fucking thing.
yeah. Hopefully, there's like a sample credit or something there, because like I said, the legal team at Dirty Hit and Associates is gonna be very funny. But yeah, it ends really nicely with "When We Are Together." I'm sorry. The last thing I'll say about You is that it successfully does what I also like about On Melancholy Hill, which is take a song that's in major key but make it kind of depressing.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that part, but then the album ends with "When We Are Together," and I think that's a pretty solid ending too.
Yeah, I think When We Are Together is good, as well as I said, a little ending. I like how they stripped it back. I will always prefer like their synth sound, but that's me literally having chill wave be basically my favorite genre. So I'm always going to be biased towards that. But for them as a band and as a group who have been together since they were like 13, 14, right? For their most of their lives at this point, they made a record that cements them to me as one of the better indie bands in the world right now, one of the better rock bands, alt bands in the world right now, where they admit their mistakes with notes, they admit some of the things that they wanted to work on, and they wanted to figure out, who do we want to be as a band, who do we want to be known as, what sound do we want to be known as. And they do that great with this record. There's still some issues I have. I think for a Jack Antonoff produced a record, there's still issues I have with some of it sounding very similar as we went on to other tracks and other people, which I think is something that with him, he gets ideas and projects of either stuff that he's made before or from other artists that you really get to hear the influences too much. So I think like he still needs to work on his creativity a little bit more and whatnot. But for the past two Jack Antonoff produced records, which I've like despised because they really made it sound way too similar for this, for being funny in foreign language, it's not. It's more of like what's Lord's second record? I can't think of the name of it.
Which was
Melodrama.
also produced by Jack Antonoff. So
By
that's
Jack
what I'm
Antonoff,
kind of trying to
exactly.
say here.
It's like it's
Yeah,
like
it's that
that.
like Jack Antonoff has hits and misses for sure. Like he's
And this is a return to form to me from Jack Antonoff. But I think also because you have like the George, the drummer for the 1975, he is one of the main producers. I think because they can get together in that way, and it's not just Jack doing it. That's where he gets to kind of pair each other and everything. And I think that was a very good mix with it because it's not too synth heavy, it's not too synth focused like George likes to do because of his all of his garage and house music influences, and Jack more of the stripped back style. So I think they paired together very well on that. There's still some issues like part of the band I'm not too big fond of. Wintering is another track where I'm like, a little bit
I can see
about,
the
but
same with Wintering too. Like that's the part of the album where I'm like, if I had to
like,
cut one, it would probably be that.
exactly.
And
It just doesn't do it for me.
my final defensive part of the band is that to what you were just saying a moment ago, that like you kind of prefer that older synthier than 1975. I think even you as like a person on Audioface here, like we've been doing this, will say that like you and you did say this. You appreciate that they have done a lot of that music in the past before, and so if you want some of that
Yes.
shit, like you can go back to that. They've done that to a T, and they've done that very well, and many would argue they've created more than enough of that style of music for themselves and for other people to listen to. But now they want to do something creatively different, and this is going to be a new chapter for them. Definitely a new era for sure. It's funny how they end the
Hmm.
Music for Cars era and start a new one with the album cover being a guy standing
A
on a
car.
car, which just rocks.
Yeah, Maddie standing on a car, and I love
It's
it.
It's
But
Carktober
yeah,
for sure. Um,
Cartober. Yeah.
but yeah, I think yeah, part of the band does that. Listen, it's like we'll give you happiness, we'll give you looking for somebody to love, so you feel like this is a 1975 song, and then part
Mhm.
a 1975 project, 1975 album, you feel comfortable in that, and then part of the band comes in and says, okay, this is us growing up, this is us maturing, and we're
Mhm.
still gonna be a little bit of that, but we're gonna do something else. I really like what that song means, what it kind of does. Also, the line, I like my men like I like my coffee full of soy milk, and so that they won't offend anybody. Oh, so sweet they won't offend anybody. Just classic Matty Healy. He's still there. He's still making like
Oh no,
witty, quirky lyrics.
exactly. No, I think that's the last thing I'll really go on this review, so it's not 85 minutes long. The lyricism is some of Maddie's best on this record. Happiness, like example, it's Maddie really getting to his feelings, but being more sure of himself and really being out there with like having his heart on his wearing his heart on his sleeve, which he hasn't done in other tracks. Usually, it's really like more introspective and stuff, but this is him being more like out there with his love and affection towards people and whatnot. And like happiness does that, where it's like, I'll go blind just to see you, and going too hard just to see you, just to have you near. And like those little things and whatnot are really brilliant and shows him, still developing his lyricism. And he's a great lyricist already, but this record shows it. And part of the band, I'll give you that. Like the lyrics are fantastic.
And all those songs happiness as well. It keeps this the 1975s. We're going to go to levels of deepness and emotion and perspective that are like really raw, but we're also going to catch ourselves and go, not going to be too serious. Not can't do that. No, can't have that. So
Yeah,
it's nice.
exactly.
They are still it's still them, just better, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a return to form. I am happy with this record. I'm very happy with this.
Same. And so part 2 of this album review, because this is a 1975 album review, well, no, I'm kidding. Arbitrary Scale. We do Arbitrary Scales every week on Audioface because our review is our review. We said literally everything we've wanted to say about the 1975, and now I can't wait to hopefully see this band live and then just like not think about them for a good like 2 or 3 years.
Yep. You and me both.
And this week it is Rapper's Name Baby is our arbitrary scale. That's right. Rapper's Name Baby. And I'm going to give this my bad baby. Yeah,
Bad
it's a
Baby?
little bit of 1970. It's a little bit of bad baby wildness. I think is very relatable to Matty Healy.
Okay. I'm going to give this the Lil Baby.
All right.
I'm going to give this my Lil Baby.
You're
No,
you're reversing my review. All right, I see that.
exactly reverse Uno, baby.